need to understand that what was also happening over the years, it started out, it was all men. But of course, it was a cross-functional team because it was people with more of a psychology background, it was product managers, it was developers, it was architects, and then it became, whole bunches of other kinds of people. So whatever their gender, we already had to deal with power issues inside the team because developers are always more powerful than anybody else in our industry. That is how it goes, okay? And so, but at the same time, the research has been very clear over the years that the more cognitively diverse the team is, and now the more diverse the team is in background and in gender and in ethnicity, they are bringing this wider, think back to gathering the data, right? Think back to the perspectives that are brought into that between that we're creating with the user. The more we have that participating in the data collection and then in the invention, the broader, the wider the ideas we get and the less stupid the ideas we produce, like people who, let's see, what does Nicola talk about? One of these Fitbit-like things, I don't know which one it was. It wasn't really Fitbit. Came up and they're like, we have a daily tracker. You can track everything. We're going to track your steps, your this, your that. We have tracked all of your life, except for 50% of the people on the planet spend their life tracking menstruation. But, no guy sitting around the room would ever think of that kind of tracking. Just like, I don't know who invented the mammogram, but I'm sure every woman on the face of the earth would like to shoot this person. So the bottom line here is diversity matters. Now, so I want you to consider in the beginning, the teams we worked with were all men. I was one of the few women around. And, you can ask me, if you're going to ask me that other question, which is, how come they did what they told, you told them, Karen, my easiest answer to that, although you can read Retaining Women in Tech too, but my easiest answer is I'm the first of 6 children, and I've led a team of 4 brothers that come right after me because my sister was born. She was 3 when I got married. So I grew up in a male environment. So for me, these are just more brothers. They don't make me crazy. Here we are, but now we're getting more and more women. Now remember what time it is. It's the time of the women's movement. I grew up in the women's movement. We knew, all of us who entered any kind of tech field or any field at all in those, 60s, 70s, and that post-50s era knew we were going up against lots of boundaries. We didn't expect to be accepted. My doctoral dissertation is on women's friendship. And of course, this is the nice cover of my new book. Please go and take a look at it or go out to the website, witops.org, which houses all of the research and the interventions, which can be helpful to you. So I've spent a life committed to women's issues. All right. But how do we get, as more women started joining, our field, not just our field, but the whole field, how are we going to deal with that? Because diversity increases innovation, but underrepresented people are less likely to participate. They're less likely to feel a sense of belonging. So what are we going to do? All right. And we already have a plethora of problems anytime people are generating new ideas. We're going to talk about innovation. Without any data, as I said, everyone devolves to fighting over what they think, design from the eye. Without any structured process, as I said, people play who's on top and talk louder and louder. Okay, this doesn't work. Brainstorming doesn't work because all the ideas are disconnected. They don't turn into anything coherent. If we do, the solution to teams not working that they do in coding, everybody gets a little different piece. It's all sent to somebody else who, gets overinvested in it. The system can end up disconnected. I can't even begin to tell you the kind of systems that we would go to the website and we'd say, okay, this is this group. That's a menu item. This is this group. That's a menu. Yeah, it's awful. And then without any coherent concept of what we're going to make, a big picture concept, the system's incoherent, it doesn't hang together as a real product, and then we fail. So this existed without. Now let's bring diversity in. Let's bring diversity into what's going on. Let's bring bunches of different people who in the outside world have power issues. Women are routinely thought of as not technical. Their work is, their competence in something technical is routinely questioned. So, you know, you can read about all the issues in the book. But here we are, we're in a team. All right, now we're doing the early variants of visioning. And in this team, we got about at least a third were women. There's probably 10, 12 people on the team, maybe more. And Hugh and I start noticing that the women aren't talking. So the men are participating and doing stuff, and the women are doing nothing. So we're in a certain visioning session or a certain, you know, set of the work. And I say to Hugh, we can't do this. We're not going to end up with a shared understanding. The women are being disempowered. And at the time, people were starting to think about what's the best thing for women. And there was a lot of talk about separating women, you know, like Wellesley is an all-women's school, having women be apart. So one day we said, well, let's try this. So I took all the women into another room and we had them run the visioning session just with them. The men were running theirs. And then we brought them back together. And then we shared. And then the women participated in the visioning, but they had gotten their confidence. And so they started participating. We had to iterate and deal. One second. With integrating the whole team. Remember, the whole time when we're doing this practice, we're working on leveling power. We're working on making sure the data is the most powerful thing. The process of that working meeting dominates how things are done. We iterate the process so it's very clear. And so it deals with some of the psychodynamics and interpersonal problems. All right, so eventually we come up with visioning, which was also inspired by a little piece of another quality tool, and also inspired by realizing that if we're going to imagine a new product, we really have to imagine a new world. We have to imagine what the new world will be like if we introduce technology. Because of course, back in the day, there wasn't technology. We was really introducing technology. And now we say, if we introduce new technology, okay? And so you can see that it turned into a storytelling process because innovation and creativity comes better from storytelling, which connects things and it connects it to everyday life. It's not just screens. It's about how people will interact both physically and through the system. And so we have one person, you can see David Rondeau, my wonderful design chair and collaborator there, drawing on the board. You can see that they walked the affinity before we started. And you can see there's a semicircle, well, you don't see everybody, of people that are around him. And this was also inspired, I don't know if you know about this, by spooky Halloween stories. And this is apropos, it's nearly Halloween. I don't know if when you were a kid, one person would start a scary story and the next person had to build on it and the next person had to build on it. And you would try to get it scarier and scarier. So that was one of the rules of engagement. We started with lists of key issues that we got from the data. How did we gather those? In round robin. So every single person got a turn to say one thing. That meant no one can dominate. Then we did a list of hot ideas. How did we collect those? Round robin. Every single person got to say their big idea that we might work on. Then we took those hot ideas, we grouped them into themes, and we said, all right, you can see this was a purchasing vision. We have a big theme, and now what we're going to do is we're going to do multiple visions, and we're going to be able to pull in all these hot ideas as we tell the story of the new world. How else did we manage it? We said to everyone, you're speaking to the board. There's no discussion. Just like our Halloween story, you throw in your idea, David draws it, and then we go on and the next person speaks and there's a facilitator, and the facilitator is watching. And sometimes the facilitator would say, all right, you've added 3 things, so I want you to be quiet for a while. Who else wants to speak? So we'd actually modulate how people were building these ideas deliberately, okay? And everybody respected it because that was the rules. We wanted to get all the voices. Now, in one of those sessions, we noticed that there were a bunch of women, and the women, and we said, this is the origin of these rules. They would ask a question, how should we handle this? Now, that is not speaking to the board, but that is not offering a design idea. That is a powerless position because we don't want to work on that be helpful thing. We want to go, what's your idea? Throw it in there. Don't be afraid, okay? We created a safe space on purpose with rules of engagement. So we had to teach people, you don't get to ask questions, you got to provide solutions. And so we made that a rule. That's one of the rules. And so that is how we evolved the structure. And by having visions, a set of visions, we were creating a shared understanding, but now with all voices heard. So you have to be thinking about ethics, how people treat each other, how people interact, what will work with them if you're going to get the data into the product design concepts. And then after that, once we have a big concept, yes, then we can continue on our process down to testing it in the field. So if we think about innovation, whether we think about it for process or we think about it for product, it starts by going into the field and getting your best data. And for process, you better understand the people you're going to work with. We steal ideas of what to make from something we know about. We twist it to make sure it fits the situation. Then we have a structured process to be sure that it's not chaotic, that our intent is achieved, and that all voices are heard. And if we do all that, we're more likely to get buy-in from the team and the organization. And then we iterate like mad. If it's a product, with the population. If it's a process, you got to iterate from team to team to team. And Hugh and I would often go home and say, well, they were happy, but were we? And we'd say, no. Okay, what do we have to change? How are we going to do tomorrow? Every day we would iterate. So if we think about process design, you have to be building ethics, equality, and structure into your practice deliberately over the course of the time.